So let us come to another case study, that is of Sri Lanka. If you see the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka, there were Sinhalas who follow Buddhism and Tamils who follow Hinduism. You can see this yellow shaded region that was dominated by Sinhalas, and this is the dark brown region that was dominated by the Tamils. Even this region, which is light brown, that was dominated by the Tamils. If you see the ethnic composition, you can see here the society was divided into Sinhalas and the Tamils and others category. Now the Sinhalas were in majority, that is 74%, and the Tamils, they were minority, that is 18%. The Tamils were subdivided in two groups, that is Sri Lankan Tamils 13% and the Indian Tamils, that is 5%. And other category included the Christians or Muslims. We'll talk only about the Sinhalas and the Tamils because the major conflict in this country was among the Sinhalas and the Tamils. Students, they mostly ask that what's the difference between Indian Tamils and Sri Lankan Tamils. The Indian Tamils are the ones who migrated to Sri Lanka as plantation workers during the British rule. Okay, you must have heard about indentured labor who were taken by Britishers to their other colonies. So here people from South India, mostly Tamils, were taken as indentured labor. And for your information, I'd like to tell you that India was a British colony, so Sri Lanka was also a British colony. So they used to use resources from India in Sri Lanka. Then there were some native Sri Lankans who mixed and mingled with Indian Tamils, and they were known as the Sri Lankan Tamils, and 74% were the Sinhalas, the native people, and the rest were the Christians or the Muslims. So we'll talk about the Tamils and the Sinhalas basically. So what happened in this country, actually you can see with the through the ethnic composition that the Sinhalas are in majority. There's ratio difference also, 74% is to 18%, and this country became independent in 1948, and they selected a form of government, that is democracy. And in democracy, it is the majority which is going to form the government, you all know that. Okay, so what happened, the Sinhalas, because they were in majority, they started dominating the Tamils, and that is why it is known as majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. Now you know students, majority rule should never be misunderstood with majority domination. Majority rule means you are taking in consideration the concerns of majority of the section of the groups, you can say, and we're working for the welfare of the all. But when majority starts suppressing the minority, dominating the minority, it is known as majoritarianism. So the Sinhalas, they started majoritarian policy, you know, which we can explain in 3 points, you know. Like number one, you know, in 1956, they they made some amendment in the constitution, and they said that Sinhala will only be the official language of the country, disregarding Tamil language. And then later on what they did, they started following preferential policies. They started giving preference to the Sinhala applicants for government jobs and even in university admissions, neglecting or rejecting the Tamilian applicants. And last but not the least, it was decided that state will foster Buddhism, disregarding Hinduism. And Hinduism was followed by the Tamilians. So this led to frustration among the Tamils. They started revolting. They started raising their demands. Initially, there were some Tamil organizations which started raising their demands peacefully, but the government was not giving due consideration to their demands. They started adopting authoritarian approach. So what happened? These organizations converted into violent organizations in the country. One of the such organization was LTTE, that is known as Liberation Tiger of Tamil Elam. And their major demand was a separate state for Tamils, which should get autonomous status. And this demand was rejected by the Sri Lankan government. This led to a violent conflict between LTTE and the government. You can see here is the pic. These are the members of LTTE. In the center, this is the chief of LTTE, who was known as V. Prabhakaran. Due to government's authoritarian approach, suppressive approach, and not giving due consideration to the demands of the Tamils, it led to civil war in Sri Lanka from 1983 to 2009. And when there is civil war, it is a sort of violent conflict when the citizens of the country, they start clashing with each other, they start killing each other. And so what happened? What was the implications? The economy went down, the gender ratio was disturbed. Although in 2009, V. Prabhakaran, the head of LTTE, was killed in the forests of Jaffna, and this led to the end of civil war in this society. But the consequences were quite devastating in Sri Lanka. Now students, my question is that the way Belgium resolved its problem peacefully, क्या श्रीलंका अपने प्रॉब्लम को उस तरह से रिजॉल्व नहीं कर सकता था? कर सकता था, बट उसने ऐसा नहीं किया. And what was the result? Civil war. And this is because of the wrong policies of the politicians in that country. Even the people also who select these politicians. So what do you think? Is power sharing important? Yes, it is important. It's a very important question. Why power sharing? Why do we need power sharing? We can give n number of reasons behind power sharing. N number of reasons. Like power sharing, it accommodates social differences in peaceful way. It leads to resolving the problem in peaceful way through discussion and debate. It's the very spirit of democracy. So all these reasons can be divided in two categories. One is prudential reason and the other is moral reason. Now what is prudential and what is moral? Prudential reasons are based on logic. When I am saying that power sharing resolves conflict in peaceful way through discussion and debate, there is a logic here. So this is prudential reason. When I say power sharing is the spirit of democracy, there's a value here. It's a moral value. So this is moral reason. So this is also one of the important questions. Why do we need power sharing? So there are n number of reasons which can be divided into prudential and moral reason. So in the next section, we'll discuss about various forms of power sharing.